Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has failed to answer clear questions about his ill-defined military deployment in Iraq. Yesterday, Conservatives refused once again to answer in this House, but the member for Selkirk-Interlake stated on CPAC that the mission will end on October 4th. Will the Conservative government confirm that the 30-day Canadian commitment in Iraq will indeed end on October 4th?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's a great deal of confusion with respect to the NDP position on Israel. I wonder if the Leader of the Opposition could confirm for me whether Alex Anderson, who identifies himself as a fundraiser at the New Democratic Party, if he speaks for the NDP when he says, F the IDF and all who supports them, I'm sick and tired of the media BS trying to sell lies and hide a effing genocide. Does Alex Anderson speak for the NDP when he says these shameful things?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, I can understand the confusion. We are in the Middle East and we are under the eyes, but we're talking about Iraq. It took over a week for the Prime Minister to answer a simple question about the number of troops involved in the Iraqi deployment. It now appears that Canadian soldiers may require visas approved by the Iraqi government. Since this military deployment is still ongoing, and since it's set to conclude in 12 days, precisely how many Canadian soldiers are on the ground in Iraq today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, what does the Leader of the Opposition not understand? That our friends in Israel are on the front lines combating terrorism, Mr. Speaker. So when people who work for the NDP, like Alex Anderson, who identifies himself as a fundraiser at Canada's NDP, calls that what the Israeli Defense Forces are doing a effing genocide and calls the media BS for not supporting the fact that they call it a effing genocide. What does he not understand? Israel is on the front lines. Canada will continue to support our friends in Israel. We'll stand up for peace and security around the world. And unlike them, we're not confused by our position.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, there are rules in the book about question period. You are our arbiter. We ask you to enforce the rules on relevant and on question period. When asked at Foreign Affairs Committee just a couple of weeks ago, the Minister said that a status of forces agreement with Iraq outlining operating rules for Canadian forces had not yet been completed. Has that agreement now been completed? And if so, when can Canadians see it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, clearly the Leader of the NDP does not identify or understand the fact that our friends in Israel are on the front lines combating terrorism in the region, Mr. Speaker. That's why on this side of the House we support our friends in Israel, Mr. Speaker. Unlike the NDP, whose position is all over the place, Canada will stand up for Israel, will stand up for freedom around the world, Mr. Speaker. The NDP their supporter calls the NDP an effing IDF, and all those who support it, Mr. Speaker, they claim that the media are ignoring it, call it BS. We'll stand up for Israel. We'll stand up for our...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that does not speak very favourably about your neutrality in this House.